Okay, welcome back. I apologize for the way I'm dressed. Came in on a weekend on a Saturday working a little bit on a yearbook, and I thought I'd shoot another one of these little lessons and see what we can do. The last time that I shot one of these, we talked about how to find emotion, and I thought it would be a good idea to follow that up with how to specifically put that emotion into your story once you've found it. This lesson is really a balance of two cliched ideas, the head and the heart. And I feel like many of the things that we've been doing so far in our reporting, and it doesn't matter whether it's the yearbook or the broadcast or the newspaper, has emphasized way too much on the head instead of the heart. Reporting creatively is way more challenging than writing creatively or reporting factually. When you're talking about writing creatively, you're talking about like your creative writing class. You can draw upon your imagination. You can use all those sensory details and other techniques that English teachers and journalism teachers love, but you're drawing upon source material that is all up here in your head. And when you report factually, you're going off and finding real sources, but many times you're just filling in the blanks of the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and putting it into an inverted pyramid story and following that and calling it good. Many times it comes through email interviews or just a couple of sources. Reporting creatively, on the other hand, is digging deep into a story and revealing an authentic heart that lies behind each story. It's a very challenging thing to do, and there are ways of going about it. I hope that this video will give you a little bit of an idea about how to go about accomplishing that. So let's dig in. The first trick to reporting creatively is to get right to the action of the story. Don't waddle around with chatty build-ups. Let's look at some stories from a recent yearbook that sadly wasted time, revealing very little action. Art can be a form of expression, a release of stress, or even a way of life. Most only dabble in this passion, but there are few who have gone above and beyond with their own endeavors. These students have spread their own styles of interest onto canvas, paper, or clay in order to release their inner passions. That's like a creative background with no concrete details of what actually happened with this young lady right here. In the same way, when entering the hallway, there is another passionate student who has taken her love and hobby out into the world. By working, learning, and experiencing art in her own way, she has made it a life career. Let's see what she has done right away to make that her life's passion. That's where you draw people in. J.K. Rowling has made over $1 billion with the epic Harry Potter series, putting her in second place for the richest woman alive after Oprah Winfrey. The series of 7 books has resulted in millions of copies printed worldwide and 7 hugely successful movies. Sounds like Wikipedia instead of an emotional story about the fans of that very popular series. The Cedar Falls School District is striving to keep up with the latest state law, which addresses new daily health needs for students and officials. You think people are going to keep reading that story? This year's French classes are on yet another mission to help Africa. This teacher right here came from Africa. I'm sure she has amazing stories from when she was young, living with her missionary parents, that could make this be a lot more active read than that general opening. So I didn't mean to pick on those people in that last yearbook, and it's my fault more than anyone for not forcing everyone to dig deeper into the reporting that we do. But here's a start, and I want to look at this story specifically that came from a recent copy of the Des Moines Register about the Des Moines North basketball team. Des Moines North is a side of the city which struggles with a lot of economic poverty, background, crime, broken families. But this team this year has been fantastic, and it many times comes down to one coach who has brought through much of his leadership and not giving up. There was a reporter who followed this team and its successes all the way through a couple of days, just trailing behind all of these members on the team. And one of the stories starts like this. As floodwaters began to consume New Orleans, Terrence Bush holed up in an uptown hotel with 3 young sons wondering what to do next. The water overtaking the city in August 2005 after Hurricane Katrina threatened to reach their floor. The flood surge would trigger the single most catastrophic natural disaster in U.S. history, according to FEMA. You could hang your feet out the window on the 3rd floor and touch the water, he said. Bush, the father of Des Moines North basketball player Terrence Bush Jr., understood that the situation they faced was a matter of a life and death. Another trick for adding intensity is to take the time to recreate the scene of highest emotion all the way down to each side of the conversation at the moment of highest focus. Ask, "What did you say?" and "What did she say?" until you have the whole anecdote complete with sensory details to let us hear, smell, taste, touch, whatever sensory detail is applicable for that moment. So going back to this Des Moines North story, this coach, 41 years old, picks up the players sometimes who have a hard time making it to school. And he basically chauffeurs them from place to place as needed. So in the middle of the story, the reporter followed this coach in the van, and we pick up the conversation right here. As Ryan, 41, has watched the Miles brothers grow up, he jokes about the mounting years he's stayed linked, heart and whistle, with the polar bears. Darius treated me like an older brother or uncle. Then, Darian was more like a dad, and now Derek calls me Grandpa, said Ryan, punctuated with a laugh. So I'm Grandpa to somebody now, I guess. A few minutes later, Derek quickly straightens up in his seat and realizes he forgot to ask their mother for money. Tonight's game is a long road trip to Ottumwa. Everyone in the van knows this is a code for food. But then Coach Ryan shoots back. We have sack lunches on the way down and pizza after the game. Darian, quietly, and to no one in particular, responds, "That's because Coach takes care of us." That shows you the heart of this guy right here behind the wheel and how much he means to the players on this team. So the best way to get that story is to actually go to the event and use all of your ways of perceiving that story, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, feel it, to get the whole inside for your audience. But sometimes you can't go to that story. The best way is to go, sometimes you can't go. That doesn't mean that you still can't get that story through extensive reporting. This is an example of a story where that emotional context was built into an award-winning story by Austin Hansen and Austin Schaub a couple of years ago. Let's take a look.
One CF student has been playing sports at Cedar Falls since he was a child.
I've been playing probably around since I was kindergarten on up, so it's been quite a ride for me.
I see him practice every day. He's a great guy. He's got to be around, so a lot of our teammates really like him.
But George has a different story than most athletes. If you went to a CF basketball practice, you would not see George posting up or running sprints. Because of medical complications, George is the team manager.
I had a stroke in utero whenever I was in my mom's womb, so before I was born, and that limited me to things I could do, but I found, as most people have seen, that I found a lot of ways that I can do things that any other human could with 2 hands.
This being his senior year, Coach Bardell gave George an opportunity of a lifetime by having him suit up and play in a varsity game. The highlight of the night was not a buzzer beater or dazzling dunk. It was a simple 3-point shot from number 30.
I came down the court, and I don't think it was a really set play. I just came down to where I was supposed to be. I think it was Casey Jackson who threw me the ball, and so I didn't have anybody on me. I took the shot, and sure enough, it went in. I wanted to celebrate, and I was glad that he took that time out for me to take in the moment, but I think overall it was a special moment for probably anybody if they were in that situation.
Probably the only people in the gym who were more excited than the fans were George's teammates.
When George made that three, I jumped up and I screamed loud for him. It's awesome for a guy like him who comes out, manages for us every day, and he just does what the coach tells him to, and it's good for him to get an opportunity to hit a shot like that in the game. We all were really excited for him. We just jumped and screamed as loud as we could, and we were just happy that he was able to get the opportunity to make that shot.
I also want to thank the coaching staff for giving me the opportunity, and especially support from all my players and all the fans too.
This has been Austin Hansen and Austin Schaub reporting for the Tiger Highline Home.
Another effective technique for making your stories active, beyond delivering the action immediately with lots of sensory details, is to find individual reps of broader issues that affect many individuals. Put a face on the story. Don't just write about internet bullying or the commercialization of Christmas. Instead, take us to the individual who can show us the impact of those broader issues. Here's some examples. One of the best yearbook journalism programs at the high school level in the country is a school system down in Kansas, Shawnee Mission East. They always put out award-winning stuff that you'll see in collections of the best around the country. 2005, they had a yearbook out. This is a little bit, well, actually, quite a lot unusual topic for a yearbook, but they covered the issue of divorce. This is an issue that faces many, many high school students, but very hard to report. Obviously from the awkwardness, but just trying to get down to the details is really a challenging thing to do. So they had a yearbook spread, very creatively laid out, with two separate stories, and this is how each of them begin, putting individual faces on issues that affect many, I'm sure probably up to maybe even 20, 30, 40% sometimes of families wind up facing this issue of divorce. On any given weekday morning, freshman Connor Lear woke up in a different room than the week before. From the day his parents got divorced to the current day, Lear's life was continually changing. His emotions had shifted along with his lifestyle. I guess at first I was just really mad, Lear said. It was just so sudden of a thing for me. Now, it's more like I notice their differences and I'm used to everything. Right there in the middle of the action. Everyone that's faced that issue knows exactly what he's talking about. And for those who haven't, they know exactly what he's talking about. Here's another from the exact same thing. It was dinner time, right there in the middle of the action. It was dinner time and her dad was at the table crying. Sophomore Hollyworthy's life was going to change. And like most other kids during their initial news of their parents' divorce, Worthy was taken aback and shocked. That's what it's like to take broader issues right down to the individual level and put a face on it that everyone, whether they've been a part of it or not, can relate to. I found another way of making those broader ideas specific in a storytelling way, in an engaging way, in one of the most recent issues of Writer's Digest. This was in the February edition of 2014. There was an article in here about this guy that does travel writing. And he did some point-by-points, many of them good points, but I want to concentrate on this one point right here, where when he's trying to pitch his stories to the editors that are going to print them in their publications, he says, you should tell a story. Don't sell a destination. Don't just give me the facts. Don't just do factual reporting. Get down and sell a story. Be a storyteller. So you need to find an angle. He says, one of the reasons McCarthy feels he has found success in travel writing ties back to what he told his National Geographic Traveler editor years ago. He knows how to tell a story. He points out that one of the biggest mistakes travel writers make is they write about destinations. But it's storytelling that grabs people. It's how we communicate, and that is how we should approach travel writing. He's partial to quest stories, for instance, because they have a strong built-in hook, a clear direction that naturally engenders a story, like when he went searching for the perfect cup of tea in Darjeeling, India. And then there's the time McCarthy wanted to write about Tahiti. But he needed an angle to pitch to the editor. In the course of doing some research, he discovered that 95% of all black pearls come from Tahiti. Because his mother had a big birthday coming up, he combined the two ideas and went on a quest to Tahiti to find a pearl farmer who would let him dive down, pluck an oyster from its bed, and bring home a black pearl for his mom. That became the article's narrative, which then gave McCarthy a means to detail the country and its pearls. The resulting piece, In Search of the Black Pearl, ran in October 2010 National Geographic Traveler. He could have easily written a simple destination article, but by making it concrete, a tale with a beginning, middle, and an end, he created something that connects with readers on an emotional level. And that is the difference between telling a story and selling a destination, and the heart of great travel writing. Remember, it's all about sharing your discoveries. You're on a treasure hunt. You're going to dig through the research. You're going to track down all those sources. You're going to employ all your senses along the journey. And you're going to reveal all of the detailed, motivated recollections that you can collect. You're the guide that we're going to trust to go on a memorable trip into the unknown. So here's a recent story from the Tiger Highline that I think employs a lot of the details that we've been talking about so far. This is written by Ellen Wallingford, and it was, selfishly, about me, about a trip that I took in the Rocky Mountains last summer. Let's read along here. When one gets lost in the mountains after hiking for 14 hours with a 50-pound backpack on one's shoulders, one would usually want to go home as soon as possible. English teacher Brian Winkle would like to do it again. This summer, Winkle embarked on a solo backpacking trip for 8 days in the Wind River Range in the Rocky Mountains in western Wyoming. Winkle said he walked a 3.1-mile route in his neighborhood every day, yet the steepness of the Wyoming mountains was still a shock compared to the flatness of Iowa. Coupled with the thinner air of the mountains, Winkle said it was much harder to breathe. I had to stop and rest a lot and put my head down on my trekking poles, Winkle said. Winkle also described the task of preparing his food. In order to carry everything on his back, he had to dehydrate all his food, and even then he didn't have many options. He prepared muesli, a sort of cold oatmeal, for breakfast, gorp, which is nuts and raisins, for lunch, and tabbouleh, a Middle Eastern salad with bulgur, vegetables, olive oil, and lemon juice for dinner. Even though he loved these foods, he quickly grew tired of eating and the same thing. Winkle said he lost his way a few times and ended up hiking in the wrong directions. He recalled the second day of his trip when he chanced upon a dynamite crew blowing up the trails in order to improve the switchbacks, or hairpin turns on the trails. After chatting with the crew member, Winkle hiked down the mountain and unknowingly followed a deer trail into nothing. He found the real trail again, but hiked back up the mountain, discovering his mistake only when he saw the dynamite crew once again. Even though this cost him about 4 hours in total, Winkle tried not to grow too frustrated. There are two types of people, Winkle said. People who laugh about their mistakes and people who cry about their mistakes. Adversity builds character, they say. Winkle followed the Glacier Trail, which is known for the rare species of brightly colored golden trout that thrive in the high altitudes. Winkle even caught a golden trout, a proud personal accomplishment. He even caught brook trout in 9 consecutive casts. He remembers the mind-blowingly glorious views from the mountains, the crystal clear waters, the wildflowers in bloom, the elk feeding on the grass, even above the tree line, even the cute fuzzy pikas making high-pitched goat noises. Winkle said he loves exploration and seeing new things, and is always looking to go where other people don't, because usually those places are the most beautiful. I was exhausted, but proud, Winkle said. I wanted to stay there. Okay, well, I don't want to get all carpe diem on you, but creative reporting is reporting that is building stories that are going to last. And there are some specific ways of going about it. Just to recap, one way to do it is to take us to the action right away. Don't waddle around. Don't waste words. Put us right in the middle. Start it literally in the middle of the story. That's called in media res. Put us right there. And then go back for the rest of the story details later on, the facts. The second way is to introduce us to individual reps, vibrant reps of broader contexts of issues that face many people. People want to see the human side of each issue. They don't need to hear the Wikipedia condensed version of what you're trying to report. And the last thing is, dig. Dig, dig, dig. Use all your sensory details, talk to all the people you can, try to recap those magic moments, asking what did he say, what did she say in reply. It's copious and detailed work. It's not easy. Storytelling is very hard work, but the rewards can last for a very long time. One of my favorite lines of poetry is by a guy from, Lance Henson. And he has a line that goes, sometimes the heart looks out on open fields and sees itself returning. Take us to those open fields. Be a creative reporter. Let us experience our heart returning when we see what was so evident from all of your extensive storytelling. Good luck.